Coloring Crypto.
Try this Google search, Miami Bitcoin Conference, and then add the word women. Search that, and you'll encounter a meaningful conversation about gender representation in cryptocurrency, tech, or just our society. The first listing has the title, 1.23% female speakers. Shame on you, Miami Cryptocurrency Conference. I understand the conference organizers are aware of the oversight and are addressing this issue. This is not about them. This is about us. Women in crypto. It's a worthy paintbrush. Welcome to Coloring Crypto. This is a two-part episode. Two companies creating crypto tokens, starting with Rachel Cook, the founder and CEO of Seeds.
I'm Rachel Cook. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Seeds. Seeds has a suite of front-end products that we give to apps that allow their users to contribute to people in need while making purchases, which makes the apps up to 30% more in revenue for free, because it happens that helping people turns out to be the most effective way to get somebody who's never spent money in your app to start spending. So that's this encouraging thing about humanity. Additionally, we're doing a token sale right now, and our tokens, when redeemed, allow anyone redeeming them to ask the blockchain for help, essentially, and receive that as a gift with no strings attached.
I became aware of you when I watched a video that Jackson Palmer had done, and he interviewed you, and you were discussing your role as a female founder and the benefits of doing an ICO in that context. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Man, I have so many thoughts about this. So I think it's sort of fashionable now to say that you've been in the crypto space since 2013. I feel like that's the year that people that actually weren't in super early say. But I started buying Bitcoin in 2013. I was really interested in cryptos. And then Seeds, my company, went through Boost VC, the Bitcoin-focused accelerator, in 2014. So I thought for a while, because our thing was sourcing money for people who needed it in apps and then moving the funds initially to places like Kenya and Haiti, developing countries, it seemed like some blockchain solution to move the money would ultimately be a good idea for us. But that wasn't a part of the initial product infrastructure. We were just moving it manually through traditional means like wire transfers through banks. So I was aware of cryptos when I was broke, which happened several times from the beginning of Seeds being in existence. One of the times I got out of it involved selling all of my Bitcoin and using it to pay employees. Yeah, which is a huge bummer in hindsight, but that's how it goes. It was good to have that option available at the time.
So you had been doing traditional fundraising for venture capitalists and seed investments.
Right. So I've raised about $1 million from traditional startup funders. And we've gone through, as I mentioned, Boost VC, the Bitcoin-focused accelerator, in 2014. We also went through Techstars in New York in 2015. And we competed in Techcrunch Disrupt Battlefield in 2016. So we were kind of a part of these sort of known programs in the startup world. Yeah. And it was just so frustrating to see. I remember literally one time I went in and pitched this very known Bitcoin investor.
Yeah.
And I had literally 8 male founder friends that he had already invested in, who had back channeled me to him and so forth. And, I went in and, because my friends had pitched him successfully, I knew where their businesses had been at in terms of growth and, like market potential and so forth when they had successfully gotten him to close. And I knew that we were further along in virtually every metric you could consider. Right. And he still turned me down. So it was just like, it was really difficult. Obviously there are many variables. Gender discrimination is not the only variable that factored into that outcome. But it was just so blatant. It was really, and so not merit-based, that it was just really like, man, I just don't even want to deal with this system anymore. I want to look at alternate ways to like eliminate this problem for people like me who have been discriminated against by the system.
So just explain that in terms for our newbie listeners, like what does it mean to be raising money through a token sale in terms of your own personal experience compared with, what your experience is in, raising money in traditional ways?
Sure. So maybe to start with, for anyone who's unfamiliar with how traditional fundraising works for startup founders, in the beginning, when you're raising a seed fund, which I guess I loosely identify as maybe up to like $1.2 million ish, you're going around, you're pitching usually angel investors. If you come from people will say that the very first money that you get in is from quote unquote friends and family. But if you don't have access to, if your family isn't wealthy or you don't have wealthy friends, you can't get money from that source. So once you kind of have been around a little bit and kind of have gotten access to angels within the startup sphere, then you can kind of go out and raise $25,000, $50,000 checks from angel investors who are typically high net worth individuals. Maybe they have a fund and they're just looking they're usually investing in you as a person, and, they want to see that the potential for the company is large, that the market is large, but mostly it's about the personal connection. So,
yeah. And the folks you're talking to at that stage, what's the gender sort of breakout of those folks?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's all, I don't have any statistics I can pull out of the back of my pocket. In my experience, it's got to be more than 90% white male. Yeah, sometimes you run into, in the last couple of years, it's become more, I almost feel like it's become cooler. There's like this trend to think about funding female founders and other founders who don't have access in the same way. But because this is more philosophic, but because the structure of our society is patriarchal, I think that shows up in men and in women. And I've been more and more conscious of how that shows up in myself. So
that's interesting. I'd love to hear an example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this relates to what I'm trying to do with Seeds tokens on a philosophic level as well. But so I think that because we live in a patriarchal society, what that means, if you'll entertain this idea, is that so all humans have yin and yang, right? Like masculine and feminine energy. A patriarchal society teaches everyone to overvalue the masculine and undervalue the feminine. So I think this shows up in lots of ways that are really bad for all people, men and women. So like, for example, I feel like this shows up in that we're taught to be, if the masculine, if we're defining it in this way for these purposes, is sort of this energy of like doing and being productive and striving and going for the external. And the feminine is more the energy of receptivity and maybe emotional sort of like connectivity, collaboration. That's undervalued. That's thought to be not as important. So it's almost hilarious to me. I think I was in a grocery store the other day and I saw a Fast Company magazine, and the cover story was something like, it was like 103 new ways to be productive in 2018 or something. It's just like we're so taught to think about how important it is to be productive, and we feel guilty when we're quote unquote not being productive. But productivity doesn't matter it's even detrimental if you're doing the wrong thing, right? So yeah, I mean, the way that shows up practically then is it's in our work culture. It's in the way that we're taught to compartmentalize sort of getting a task done and maybe how we feel about doing the task even. So the idea of work-life balance, I think, is a function of this framework of thinking, and it's really flawed and damaging and doesn't make sense because your work isn't separate from your life. It's part of your life. And so even, looking at awful things that happen where typically white straight men will, like mass shootings, for instance, I think that's a function of this framework as well, in that the emotional is so cut off from that individual's experience that the only way it can be expressed is through violence. And that's a terrible, like casualty, a terrible thing that happens to a lot of men. They get cut off from that part of themselves. As it interacts with money, I think what that means is that, a lot of it is still unconscious, but bringing it back to traditional fundraising for startup founders, I found that women that are, this is a blanket statement, but probably women in their 50s are maybe the most difficult to raise from, because I'd say a lot of those women made their money in finance if they were successful in finance, they had to be the most masculine. They had to have the most masculine energy just to survive. Otherwise, they wouldn't have. And then because they were so hard on themselves and the feminine parts of themselves, they're also hard on that part of other women, right? So the sweet spot I found, even in talking to some of my female founder friends, is men over 55 who have more daughters than sons. And I've come across
really. So you discussed this exact sort of demographic, yeah.
And I'd even come across another friend had referenced. There was a study had been done on congressmen voting pro women on various issues, and they found that congressmen who had more daughters than sons voted pro women much more often. So it's like, they could kind of access that empathy through their children. And if they had 2 daughters and 2 sons, it didn't hold. They had to have more daughters than sons in order for this to show up. Like,
fascinating. I have not heard this.
Yeah. And I found that to be true. I mean, the easiest quote unquote, pitch meetings I'd had with angel investors were of that demographic, men over 55 with more daughters than sons. So it really showed up in my experience in this way as well. So yeah, it's discouraging. It's discouraging to say the least.
Okay, so now we move into this whole idea of a token sale, and that means you're not going to direct meetings with these very rich people. Describe how it's a different landscape and what the benefit is in that regard.
Sure. I feel like I should start off by saying, though, that I think the way token sales are mostly being conducted now, and of course it's still very new, it actually is pretty similar to what's going on in traditional investment when people are raising money in traditional ways. By that, I mean, I was talking to a friend who did an ICO who's raised over $30 million recently. And he was saying that, most token sales, they raise money from like 100 people. So I didn't want to do it that way though. So in terms of what Jackson Palmer was talking about in that video that you had seen, as I mentioned, I was interested in cryptos for a while. But then this past summer, I came across an article that I'm sure a lot of the listeners may have also seen. I think it was in Forbes. And the title was something like, "Can ICOs change the game for female founders?" And so I started thinking more about whether or not that would be interesting for us to do. And I'd even found back in 2014, AngelList the platform was different at that time. And I remember I was able to reach something like 1,600 investors through the platform through people connected to seeds. And so I just did this sort of like typical sales process where I reached out to all 1,600 of them. I forget, like 5% responded, and I was able to close 1% of them. And that got me a couple $100,000 at a time when we really needed it. And we really didn't have much to show just yet, right? And so the difference there was that I had access to an international pool of investors who were interested in getting in on, Silicon Valley deals, I guess. And there was something about talking to most of them on the phone and over email that seemed to kind of tamp down the gender discrimination issue. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then AngelList changed the way the platform worked to favor the syndicate model, which then perpetuated the same old problem with, you got to know the rich white guy to get the funds, to get all the people that follow him to also invest in you. So I wrote a couple emails to the AngelList founder. They were just kind of like, man, this used to be this kind of democratic, interesting platform, and now it's not anymore. Please change it back. And didn't get any replies. But that said, I wondered if, having seen this Forbes article about female founders and token sales, if what had worked for me in sort of that setup would also hold in a token sale type of structure.
And just with AngelList, as far as you're aware, there wasn't any kind of like public statement around the sort of side effects of going to the syndication model.
No, not to my knowledge at all. And there was no response to those emails. And it just wasn't their priority, I think. I mean, a lot of what they're doing is really interesting, in my opinion. And a lot of it has been helpful for founders. Relating to that, I've thoughts, and relating to cryptos generally. So it's like, this is sort of like a half-baked theoretical thing, but cool. It's like we have the information superhighway. That's what the internet was in the mid-90s. That's what we were forming. And now with cryptos, we can create this new sort of like internet of money. I know Miko said you have open source money is the thing that's going to win. AngelList is a thing that helps you get money through the portal of the information super highway. It's not existent within this other portal of like what cryptos can be. So it's like, it's constrained by the old system. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
in a way, I feel like there's only so much that can be done within that framework. And Angel listed some experiments that were interesting and valuable. But we have to create a whole new thing in order to really democratize that access. And that's what we're trying to do with Seeds tokens.
Okay, let's talk about, so you've had this company for a little while, and you've done, where are you with your token sale? Did you complete the token sale?
We're doing it in a different way. And it was I took this sort of, really kind of like a lean startup approach. I mean, like I mentioned, we went through Boost VC, the Bitcoin focused accelerator. So I had several friends in the space who had done ICOs and what I guess is now sort of, in as much as there's a traditional way to do it so far, they had done that. So I'd gotten their insights. I knew I didn't want to go to the 100 Bitcoin deca millionaires and ask them for funds. It would be the same problem I had before, I think.
Yeah.
Some small percentage of all ownership is, they own the vast majority of the actual coins. It's mostly white, straight men who have been in the tech space. And so I wanted to think about ways to make sure what we're doing, which is, we created these tokens that allow you to ask our system for help. It's sort of like a decentralized GoFundMe. And then you just receive that help with no strings attached as a gift. So I wanted to make that available to everybody. And that requires some education in some cases. It's a different approach. So we're doing this longer sale. And yeah, I'm still not entirely sure like how it's going to end up. We're kind of refining it as we go. And as we get more and more user feedback, we're tweaking things. But the sale's been going on since October. And we're just trying to do everything we can to let people know about it and to let people that maybe think of themselves as, like not tech savvy or they find cryptocurrencies confusing. We want to make sure those people are aware that they can get these easily and they can use them easily as well.
I'm just curious how I'm guessing it's not-for-profits that are receiving the money. How do those organizations get involved with you?
No, this is actually important to make sure I try and explain my thinking about, I guess. It's anybody. It can be anything as long as it's legal. Or at least that's based on our understanding of what's possible right now. That's sort of the parameters. So not just not-for-profits. It could be any kind of organization. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And we're taking a cut. We get a cut. The app makes more money. Seeds makes money. And then you get whatever you've asked for as a gift. So it's like another thing I want to transcend is this weird for-profit, nonprofit kind of dichotomy that we have set up that I think exists for tax reasons in the States that are like 70 years old. And so, this goes back to the patriarchal framework way of thinking as well. I think it's like patriarchal thinking is zero sum. It's ones and zeros. It's these dichotomies that maybe don't serve us. And it's the same with sort of nonprofit and for-profit, like the split that those are the two classifications of types of entities. And that's really limiting. Right. And then I think what happens is, nonprofits get thought of in a certain way. They have less resourcing. Usually they're, in my experience, sometimes less efficient, unfortunately, because they're not incentivized in the same way. And then that can lead itself to like rampant greed in the for-profit sphere without any kind of mindfulness about how something is actually helping people. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can integrate those ways of being. And I think with Seeds tokens, something I'm attempting to do at least is to try and transcend that way of being so that, like in my Techcrunch Disrupt Battlefield pitch, I really try to hit home this idea that we're creating a bigger pie for everyone. It's not this one-dimensional zero-sum paradigm. We're creating more value for every actor within our ecosystem and greater wealth for everyone involved. And that's the way of the future, I think.
Imagine a world, let's say, I don't know if it's in 2 years or 3 years, and everything with your company, with Seeds, goes in some of the best case, scenarios. What does it look like for a user? What's their experience? It would the optimal, the dream way that it would look. There are
so many challenges before we get to this, but it would mean, right? Like you, Gabe, like you need $1,000 for something related to the podcast. Maybe you want to throw some kind of event to promote the podcast or something. You would take a token, you would redeem it through our web portal. Hopefully by that point in a few years, we'd also have really easy to use, mobile portals that work on phones that people are using in the developing world, not necessarily smartphones. And you would redeem the token. We would blast it out to the hopefully hundreds of millions or even billions of users that we're reaching at that time, because the idea is Seed's front-end products could exist at every digital point of purchase so that kids in the future take it for granted that, of course, anytime they're buying anything through a digital portal, that they would contribute $1 or $2 to help somebody do something that sounds cool to them because we're successfully showing them social good opportunities that they're interested in, right? So yeah, we blast your need out to hopefully hundreds of millions or billions of people, get it met near instantly, and then we would just gift it to you.
And so you sort of alluded to this, so talk about the challenges you're facing and what do you see like the biggest risks to getting there?
The challenges we're facing, like this, the most pressing right now. I mean, in the immediate term, it's really just like I should stress that of all the token sales that I've been aware of anyway, we're further along in terms of product development. I think, I hope I'm not overstating and saying, I'm fairly certain this without exception, because the product ecosystem that allows a user, the front end products that apps are using have been functional since 2014. And we've been sourcing capital through the social good mechanism since then. Prior to the token sale, we just didn't have a way to allow users to submit their own needs. We were curating needs through organizations that we knew about and individuals that we knew about, right? So that's the shift. So as an aside, that's another interesting opportunity the token sale presents for us, because it allows us to form this end user community that we can talk to directly rather than just through the SDK. And and we can engage with them and we can say like, hey, we're launching this new app. You should go check it out if you want to. So we can drive new users to apps using our products to solve this other obviously important problem for them, like user acquisition. And then on a related note, so for example, Evernote's marketing department approved using us last summer, I think. But then their finance department was hung up on our business model. And it didn't seem like it mattered how much I was doing to try and communicate to them, like, no, this makes sense. We're creating new revenue. You should try this. Like, we were just stuck in limbo in their finance department. So my thinking is that with the engagement we're seeing in the end user community, we can say like, hey guys, 100,000 of you are Evernote users, click here and you'll email the CEO or you'll tweet at the CEO automatically of Evernote to tell him that he should try using Seeds. This
might be a dumb question, but is the ultimate goal with the Seeds token that eventually that would be on one of these, token exchanges?
It's an important milestone for us. I know for legal reasons, I need to talk about this in a specific way, but I mean, there are utility token platforms like Poloniex, for instance, that could be a great fit for us. Seeds is a utility token. And I know that Poloniex, for example, really listens to their user community when considering what utility tokens to support. So we could engage the Seeds community to talk to them. That's going to be one part of this that's important. The unit of currency in our case is something that you're defining personally when you make a needs request. So each token, it's a single token redeemed for a single needs request made. And, thereby you're defining the value of the currency yourself. And I think that there's something really interesting in that that's going to be crucial to the shift we're going to start seeing economically, even more so as, various crypto things become more widely used. It's not the central government that's defining the value of the currency, but even other cryptocurrencies aren't allowing users to define the value of a single token themselves. So yeah, it's just adoption of that is a big goal.
Okay, cool. Let's unless there's something else you want to add about, and we can get more to Seeds, the company, later. But I kind of want to back out to the big picture and talk about, you said you got into cryptocurrency in 2013. What was your own experience? When did you first hear of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency? And what was your sort of transition to saying, oh, I get this, I'm going to start buying some?
That's such a good question. I'd heard kind of, I guess, whispers about Bitcoin Uh, at least for sure in early 2013, I remember an economics professor I'd had at Duke who I was friendly with had mentioned it. It was kind of that thing I think that happens where like the universe or whatever tells you the thing you're supposed to pay attention to in whispers. And if you don't hear it, it gets louder and louder. And then if you're really not listening, then you can kind of get whacked in the head. But I think I caught it pretty early. And then Silk Road was shut down. And I remember seeing that the price dropped when the Fed seized the Bitcoin that Silk Road had been holding. And then the stock trader and me kind of kicked in, and it was just like, this is undervalued for sure. Like, this price just dropped. I should buy it because it just dropped. And, at that time I was pretty broke. I've been broke a lot through the life of the company. And I think I maybe put like $4,000 or $5,000 worth on a credit card, as much as I could afford at that time, and got in. And I remember just being so excited and really kind of just sensing what this could mean and how I just felt so lucky that I was aware of it. I became aware of it when I became aware of it. And I feel like this is such an exciting time to be alive in many ways. And this is one of them. We're seeing all of these shifts, and a lot of them are painful and difficult, but this is really cool. And this is the thing for our time to be a part of, I think. And so I feel really stoked to be a part of it.
So before the government, shut down Silk Road and the price of Bitcoin dropped, had you bought any before then?
I hadn't. No, it was.
So you really timed it. You really timed it.
I really did, and I mean, you don't, as a stock trader or whatever, as a trader, no trade is perfect. You're always leaving some money on the table because you can't, you can't know. But that trade, man, I was proud of myself because I really did time it nearly perfectly. I got it when it dropped, and then I took it off. It was in January of 2014 when it hit those highs, and then it dropped off again. So it was just like, yeah, it just worked out really well. It was really fun.
Okay, I have two totally different tangential questions. Maybe you can pick one and go with it. I'm curious, if you're active with trading other coins is one sort of direction. The other is to just talk more about how the blockchain fits for your model. So totally different questions. You can take either one or both.
Yeah, maybe I'll start. I mean, thinking about trading. I mean, I feel like it's just, these are the easiest quote unquote trades anyone can make. I mean, I felt like I had an advantage having experience with trading in the beginning because, and this continues as more and more people who aren't familiar with that, get into the space. So you could kind of see stuff that would happen and maybe like moves would be more obvious to you if you had some experience than they would be if a bunch of professionals were trading a thing, because people would just, I feel like I often thought this when I was professionally a trader, which was that it's just this sort of Ouija board of human emotion. There are obviously, algorithmic trading can make people a lot of money and machines can do things that humans can't do. But because it's driven by, craving and aversion, and you can see how that works within what it is. So if you really believe in your idea, the hardest part is to hold it when something's really going against you and not panic and get out. All of that said, I mean, I feel like cryptos are easy to trade because you pretty much just buy them and you keep holding them if you can. You can kind of see when something's pulling back and do sort of like you can apply some technical analysis in that, like right now, Bitcoin's hanging out. Essentially, the retracement from around 20,000 is about what you would typically see after a big run. It comes down like roughly like a third-ish. And that's where Bitcoin's hanging out right now in terms of price. So that's pretty much in line with what you typically see. So I think now, I mean, I'm not a financial advisor and all that stuff, but I think it'll run again, technical issues aside. And so.
Which exchanges do you use?
I'm mostly looking at GDAX several times a day. I mean, there are other, like, for instance, I was paying attention to Litecoin in 2013 also because when I started buying Bitcoin, I had noticed that Litecoin hit its $6 highs when Bitcoin had hit its previous highs of like 233 or 263 in April of 2013. And I remember Litecoin was at $1.76 in October of 2013, I believe. And I figured like, okay, it'll probably triple. It'll probably go test $6 highs, its previous $6 highs, if Bitcoin also makes a run, because there was a lot of conversation about silver being or Litecoin being the silver to Bitcoin's gold. And then like Charlie Lee was working for BTC China, where Bobby Lee's exchange at the time. And then I think around soon thereafter, he started working at Coinbase. So I figured like this means, Coinbase is going to support Litecoin soon. So that's a really good sign, right?
Right.
And that was the better trade. That went up to $42 in December of 2013. But I got scammed, man, because I used this site, eobot.com, which was the only site I could find that allowed you to buy using PayPal at that time. And I felt really smart because no one else on Reddit got this. But they claimed, like 2 days before, I think it hit highs on like December 8th or something. 2 days before I get this email and it's like, yeah, the transaction was reversed because PayPal doesn't allow cryptocurrency purchases. And PayPal, confirmed that it was a merchant reversal. This guy just said that, that PayPal wouldn't accept it. So we just sold off my Litecoin when it hit highs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm actually pursuing a lawsuit now. We might do a class action thing if anyone else listening to this was also scammed by EOBot. Yeah, so Litecoin was the better trade at that time. And and then I was ultimately right, obviously, that Coinbase would support Litecoin. I was just like 2 years off or 3 years off.
There's a good plug. If any listeners out there were scammed by EOBots, contact Rachel.
Genuinely, I mean, I know of at least one other person that experienced this, but no one else on Reddit responded at that time. They were just like, "Oh, PayPal's so backward," but it wasn't PayPal. Yeah, but
okay. Here's a question that I've been asking for a lot of my guests, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit for you, and I invite you to feel free to comment on the nature of my question in terms of the first thing we talked about, the patriarchal structure. Me being a white guy. The question I've been asking is, who are the people you think are most influential in the crypto space? But if I may ask you, who do you think are the women in the crypto space that are sort of the most influential?
Interesting. That makes me realize, too, that I just had the thought a second ago that another thing that I was paying attention to that I was aware of, I'm sure you saw the New York Times article that I think came out yesterday or 2 days ago. And the title was like, everyone's getting, I forget, hilariously rich and you're not, or something. And it was just about crypto multi-millionaires.
I didn't see that. We'll link to that in the show notes, though.
Yeah, check it out. I mean, because it's all conversations with young white guys, straight presumably, and then at the end it's like one sort of middle-aged. I don't know if she was Latina, who had gotten in as well, and that was the only kind of female showing in the article. And they never mentioned gender in those articles either, which is interesting, and I think shows how invisible patriarchal influences are to a lot of us.
Well, even when I ask the question, I feel put in sort of a somewhat awkward or more just kind of like wanting to ask in the right way. But, here I am asking a woman founder about women, and perhaps, this is making me aware of like, I should be asking this of men too. But,
cool.
but with the fact that I'm changing my question for you because you're a woman.
Yeah, interesting. I appreciate your thoughtfulness about that. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the most influential women, that kind of brings me back to, I mean, there are obviously women in the space. I've made friends with a couple women who have done token sales themselves. But I don't know, at least personally, of anyone who is talking about some of these ways we can shift the system in the way that I'm interested in. And that could just mean that I'm not aware of them. So I don't even know what that means to be influential, I guess. I mean, there are these young people, mostly men, who made a ton of money. It's like there are the money people. There are the people that were interested in the technology, and many of them also made a lot of money, but they're not as sort of maybe as conspicuous about it in some ways. So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, even in the whole space, I mean, do you see, like, I know this is a topic that's been covered, up and down, but, just to the fact, that in like math classes and young techie people, there's this stereotype and this truth that there's just mostly, men, boys getting into that stuff. Do you see like a landscape evolving where it really is more inclusive?
I think the design of the system will have to be transcended in order for that to be true. So I guess what I was like fumbling to get at in response to your earlier question was that even the influential women in this space, I think, are still kind of playing the same patriarchal game, because that's what you have to do in order to be even seen. So it's still winners and losers, and I don't know. It's this certain type of framework. Even the design of coding itself, because it's binary, fits in, I think, with this idea I'm trying to share about what a patriarchal framework is. So, someone like Noam Chomsky, who helped us understand that computers could talk to each other, he had, I think, a more expansive way of viewing things that isn't often present. I think for a lot of people who are in the space now, who are working within its confines. I don't know. I feel like this is super abstract. I don't think there are to my knowledge, a lot of thinkers in the space now who are kind of looking at more than the tech, and maybe they're not considering how we can transcend the system in some ways. Who
are the people you follow on Twitter? Who are the voices that you kind of pay attention to?
Yeah. I admire Jackson a lot, and Jackson's Australian, and he identifies and has said that he thinks of himself as a socialist. He has more socialistic kind of sensibilities. And so his way of thinking, I had a conversation with him once. I had been thinking about how we can't see the impact of the small things we do on other people. And I feel like we, as human beings right now, maybe we get a handful of experiences like that where we really understand how important something we did was for somebody else in a positive way, right? Anyway, so I was talking with Jackson about how we can't track that through the silos of mobile devices. They're not interconnected in this way, so you can't see. There was also this Liberty Mutual insurance commercial in the last couple of years, if anyone had seen it. And the whole premise of the commercial was like, people observe other people doing committing small acts of kindness, which then inspires them to do a small act of kindness. And even in our experience, I mentioned I've been broke a lot since starting Seeds. So I started recording videos of myself telling the stories of each instance of brokenness. There were 11 that I could remember. There are probably more. And in one of the stories, we were broke, and it was coming into the end of Boost VC. And a person who was interested in investing asked one of her son's friends, who was a teacher in New York, who played a lot of games on his phone. At the time, we were focusing on gaming exclusively. She was like, would you make a purchase in a game if it were going to help somebody out at the same time? And he was like, yes, of course. Right. And she later told me, like, that's all the diligence I did on you. And then she invested $100,000, and we really needed that. So this guy helped me in this incredible way to do this thing that will hopefully help, potentially, I hope, hundreds of millions of people. He committed suicide soon thereafter.
Wait, the guy that she had asked?
Yeah. And if only he could have known that this really small, probably offhand remark that he made had such a positive impact on me, a stranger. And then as a result, like so many, hopefully, other people. I don't know what could have been different, but I mean, just this idea of helping people understand how they're impacting others in small positive ways, I think is so important. So anyway, I was talking to Jackson about how I think we can, this kind of even clarified in the conversation with Jackson about this topic, because with Seeds, you're contributing micro amounts to people in need. There could be things we can do to show later on how much you've helped various people and what has happened with the help that you gave them. And that can work within the framework of, the current mobile hardware that we have. So I don't know. I think there's something really powerful and important in that.
Yeah, I can see that, like just that feedback loop of knowing, hearing 2 years later that somebody was phenomenally helped by just a couple dollars you may have put in or something like that.
Yeah, right. And so many of us feel like, or at least I personally experienced feelings of like, not understanding if I was even being heard or seen or appreciated, or that what I was doing mattered in any way to anyone else. And so if we could help people understand that it can in a really important ways, that just seems there's something in there that would really be helpful.
Okay, cool. So if listeners want to get involved, what do they do, and what kind of help do you need?
Thank you for asking. So if listeners want to get involved and they're app developers, we would love for them to use our products. We have a wait list right now that we're moving through, and we'll send the token holders to your app when you start using the product. So if you want to sign up for that wait list, you can visit playseeds.com, which is our main site, playseeds.com. If you're not an app developer and you want to be a part of, the token component of what we're doing, we're currently selling the tokens at seedstokens.com, seedstokens.com. And we created a promo for 30% off with the code ColoringCrypto if you're a listener. Yeah. So I appreciate you letting me share that. So we'd love to have you. We'd love to have everyone involved. The whole point of this is to help anyone who's ever needed help, and that's all of us.
Awesome. Well, thank you for including us in there as a little passcode. And then how do folks reach you?
You could tweet at me at Seeds Tweets. Yeah, and if you want to email me directly, Rachel, Rachel at playseeds.com is the best way to do that. I love talking to people who have interest in this. It's been really gratifying just to engage with the community and get to see how everyone's feeling and to respond based on what people are telling us. So I'm really grateful for those interactions. So yeah, if you want to do that, that would be awesome. Awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Just thank you. This is really cool. I really appreciate your interest. And I appreciated that what I said in Jackson's interview resonated with you about, just to restate it, at Ethereal in San Francisco, I really noticed that it seemed like the community had matured in a palpable way because it was more inclusive of different communities. And I feel like that's kind of this interesting litmus test for how growth can happen. And I'm happy that resonated with you, Gabe. So thank you. Well said. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Yeah, thank you. Okay, have an awesome day. Bye-bye. Bye. We're going to be coloring in more of the conversation of women in crypto with future guests. Coloring Crypto endeavors to illuminate the blockchain with guests from everywhere along the crypto spectrum. Rachel is offering a 30% discount on her token using the passcode Coloring Crypto. We are not receiving any of this cut. In the next chapter, we are being compensated by ETHLend. ETHLend has created a blockchain lending platform, ETHLend, and it's working. To accept a paid sponsor here at Coloring Crypto, we sniff it out, only pursue tokens we believe in, and as we have been learning and saying all along, DYOR, do your own research. With that, if you've ever wondered if you're sitting on crypto assets and want to buy a car or just buy more crypto, what if you wanted to get a loan based on your crypto assets? ETHLend has already proven the value of the problem they're solving, and their solution is in action.
My name is Martin Wichmann. I'm the growth manager for ETHLend, previously head of token sale, and ETHLend is a decentralized peer-to-peer lending market where we basically built on top of Ethereum blockchain, and we're using smart contracts to secure and collateralize loans.
So you're building a peer-to-peer lending platform. Tell us who is your ideal customer? Like, who is this for and what could they do?
Yeah, sure. That's absolutely a perfect question. Basically, in the beginning, it's most likely going to be traders, this type of person that want to create more liquidity. So if you have an illiquid token that's been going down in price, you probably don't want to sell it. So you can if it's an ERC20 token, you can pledge it as collateral on the platform and get Ether instead and use this for trading. And we also have the option of fiat pegged loans. So you can peg the price through an oracle to USD. So, let's say you take a loan for 10 Ether at the price of 1,000, the loan will be 10,000, not 10 Ether. And when you pay back, if Ether price goes down to 5,000, he'll be doubling Ether, and you get the point. But yeah.
So if I have, let's say, 10 Ether, and like you said, I don't want to sell it, I can sign up with you guys and use that 10 Ether as collateral. How does that work?
Sure. Yeah, so basically we have a live DApp.
And just for our listeners, can you just define DApp, DAPP? What is that?
So what I'm referring to with DApp is a decentralized application. So basically a normal application. We currently only have a browser application, so it's a web app. But we're planning, of course, to do a mobile app, but we just call it a DApp because it's decentralized. And you can basically go to a web browser and log into the ETHLend platform, and there you have loans that are open, or you can put in a loan request as well. But yeah, probably the first users are going to be these kind of trading possibilities that the platform enables. But our bigger vision, of course, for the platform is to enable banking services for the unbanked in the world. So basically, because it's peer-to-peer, everything happens on chain. We're using the Ethereum smart contracts to secure the loans, put in place proper collateralization. And, as we go along and the blockchain space develops, we're going to do, credit ratings and all this kind of stuff that already exists in the old banking system. But slowly, as, we progress, all those features are going to, you're going to find them in a decentralized environment. And then when it's peer-to-peer, it becomes much more interesting.
How does ETHLend maintain the decentralization?
Yeah, sure thing. So the first big thing is that we don't touch any customer assets. So when a loan is requested or a loan request is put forth and someone fills in that loan request, both the collateral is locked down and then the Ether is sent to the borrower. And then when upon payback, then the borrower will get back his collateral.
Cool. I want to get into how far along you guys are, and you just finished a token sale. But before we get into that, can you tell us the story of the founders and sort of where this idea came about and how it happened?
Yeah, basically the short version is that our founder is Stani Kulechov. Stani is a law student. He's been in the blockchain space or, studying it for a few years already. And he started testing out the smart contracts and realized what he can do with them. The funny thing is that we started with basically $200 of budget, which was spent on some random article or something like this. And besides that, we did everything bootstrapping, zero budget, guerrilla style. And yeah, we raised the pre-sale in September 25th and we raised 2,000 Ether. And then in November, we did the actual token sale.
It's got to be really exciting for you to come to get involved with ETHLend and to launch a pre-sale, not knowing how much you guys were going to make, and then tell us about your the team's experience, sort of hedging that edge as a bootstrapped company, and then having success. What did that feel like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were a young team, kind of unexperienced. I mean, I had some past experience in the blockchain projects. Danny's been in the space for a long time. Jordan knows a lot of stuff, and so does the rest of them. But, we didn't have the famous people in our team, so to speak. And this kind of young, unexperienced team was kind of shadowing it because we didn't have any budget to do marketing. We were kind of doing everything guerrilla style. So once the pre-sale opened, everyone, of course, we kind of knew that we've already built a product and accomplished something and the community was buzzing. But still kind of at the back of your head, you had the fear like, what if you raise like 30 Ether and that's it? Like after 5 days, like, oh my God. But, we closed the sale in, I think, 33 hours or something like this, a couple of days. And we were super excited, surprised. And the community has been great. Since the beginning, it's been like a lot of people engaging. It's almost like a cult, people actually believe in what we're doing and in the team and everything that we've accomplished so far. And it's just been growing the past couple of months and, we're at 17,000 now, so it's good.
And so the token sale just finished. And so what's next?
Yeah, so actually the dApp's been live since, June, and we just had our recent update adding the fiat loans, and we are currently continuing the development of the application, making it more user-friendly, getting a better user interface, and so forth.
Can you tell us what differentiates you from the different players in the crypto space?
So what differentiates us from the most of the project in this space is the fact that we actually have a product, and we've already done over 1,300 Ether worth of loans in the past only month or so after the latest update.
Talk me through that process. So let's say I put the 10 Ether up and I'm loaning that out. How does that work?
Let's use another ERC20 token as an example. For example, Lend token. You can use our own native token on the platform and pledge it as collateral and get 67% of that value. So we have 150% collateral. You'll get 67% in Ether, and then you can trade and then you pay back. Or you can use the fiat-backed loans, to hedge against price volatility. And this way, create multiple different ways to use this token. And the benefit of using the Lend token, the utility behind our own token, is the fact that you get a discount of 20% on the fees when using it on there. So this way we are not only creating an incentive, giving you a discount to use our token, but on top of that, we are rewarding active users on the platform by giving them, tokens.
And is the loan like directly peer-to-peer, where if I put up a certain amount, is that taken as a whole by one person, or can multiple people kind of take parts of that?
Yeah, currently it's a whole, but it's most definitely coming in the near future, this option of, breaking it down.
And what would you tell folks that are, sort of hearing this and they're interested and want to find out more, but also people who may not recognize the value? What would you sort of suggest to them?
I would suggest that you go to ETHLend.io. You can, find our homepage, and you can get easy access to information. If you're a hardcore person, you can read our white paper. It's already, I think, like almost 70 pages long. So there's a lot of stuff about, or a lot of details about the stuff that we've been discussing here tonight. Because it's 8 p.m. for me, so for me it's already a 12-hour working day. But anyway, so yeah, definitely go check out the product and the service and the platform and the project, and most importantly, check out the live DApp. So it's already working.
And where is most of the conversation happening for the ETHLend community?
Yeah, definitely go to the Telegram group chat. That's pretty much where we have all the buzzing going on. We also have local groups for Spanish, German, Chinese, and so forth. And yeah, that's where we all know stuff. Also, you can check our blog on ethlend.io/blog, and you'll find all the past announcements and so forth from there.
Subscribe now. Subscribe now.